What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. I am your host, Numac, and joining me, as always, as he just finished throwing up the horns, is my lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, brother.
You do know that we're playing Houston and not the Texas Longhorns, right? That both have a bull mascot, different bull, though.
It's true. Well, you have to say
Hook 'em.
no. You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Oh, God.
That's why I threw
Are
him
we
up.
are we getting the horns, or are you the bull?
I don't know. Um, I've lost this analogy pretty quick. I'm doing good.
Good.
How about you?
Doing well. Doing well. Um, Packers coming off of a win versus the Arizona Cardinals, 31-13, if my memory serves me right. For some reason, I don't have the box score up in front of me, so I'll fix that right now. But before we hop into the matchup against the Houston Texans, we have to go over last week's matchup versus, like I said, the Arizona Cardinals. They handled some cheeses. So let's get into that as soon as I pull up this box score to make sure I have everything good. 34-13. My apologies.
Good.
I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. So, all right, let's get in the cheese board. First and foremost, obviously the star of the day, Jordan Love, 22 of 32, 258 passing yards, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception, 119.5 passer rating, and then 13 rushing yards on 5 carries as well. Next up is Romeo Doubs, 3 catches on 4 targets for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty good day coming off of his suspension against the Los Angeles Rams. Evan Williams, 4 tackles, all of which were solo, 1 tackle for a loss and 1 forced fumbles on the Peanut Punch. 93.3 PFF grade, highest of any Packer, and also the highest rated safety in the NFL right now. Carl Brooks, 1 tackle, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery, and 93.0 PFF grade. Josh Jacobs, 18 carries, 62 rushing yards, 3.4 yards per carry, 3 catches on 3 targets for 28 receiving yards. And then Zach Tom, no pressures allowed, no penalties, over 73 snaps, and 88.1 PFF grade. We already confirmed that we were going to give Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs cheeses this week, so those 2 are set. We now just need to figure out the third one. So, Jordan, I will leave it to you to make the case as to who you want first and foremost.
Evan Williams.
I think
Evan
I'm
Williams.
I think I'm there too. I'm I'm asking you if we give a fourth to Zach Tom. 73 snaps is a lot of snaps. No penalties, no pressures. Um, Let me check out his PFF grade for rushing real quick to make sure that those nerds over there didn't ding him on some rushing. I say nerds half lovingly because they had ask about PFF grades this week, and I had a question about Carl Brooks who against Week 5 against the Rams had
Oh
a
yes.
really good week, but only had a 38.6 PFF grade, and they said it was because he's been really bad at run blocking, or I'm sorry, at run defending,
Pat. Yeah. Yeah.
and it was like okay, he had a grade of like 30 in the run defense, but then like a 70 and an 80 in the other 2 things, but then got a grade of 38. And I was very confused because he only had like 14 rushing snaps, like rush defense snaps, as opposed to like 30 pass rushes. And so they gave him a really harsh score on a half the volume of his better stat. It didn't make any
Weird
sense.
weighted.
Yeah, I asked to follow up and I didn't get an answer. So
Hmm.
so there's that. No, Zach Tom had a really good run blocking grade this week. 84 on offense, 86.3 on run blocking, and 81.6 on pass blocking. So I'm down to give one to Zach Tom as well, but I want your thoughts.
I mean, he's bound to. He's in the mix always, just because he's uh,
An All Pro.
incredibly. He's an all-pro lineman. He has, does his part to give as clean of a pocket. The Packers running game has been successful in part because Zach Tom is a good blocker. Screw it. We're doing four. We're doing four. Evan
Perfect.
Williams, Zach Tom, welcome to the cheese board.
Welcome to the Week 5 cheese board. Yeah, Week 5. Yeah,
6.
6. I'm no. This was week 5. No, it
Mm.
was 6. It was 6. You're right. My apologies. I'm lost in the sauce.
You were lost in the sauce.
Alrighty, so that does it for cheeses. Let's head right into the news and notes for this week. We'll get to the obviously the big news in a second, but first, Fox Sports says Jordan Schultz reported that Packers wide receiver Dontayvion Wicks is day to day with a shoulder injury. I'm sorry, week to week with a shoulder injury, and the MRI came back clean on his shoulder. Had the one catch for 9 yards and was hurt his shoulder on that catch. So, um,
I believe was seen practicing in pads today
that'd be
from
nice.
updates that I was seeing on push notifications because um I
Because you're
lost my train of
You're
thought.
working is what you could answer with.
I'm working.
You're
Yeah, yeah,
working.
I'm working because I no days off. There we go.
No, sir. Um, but yeah, limited in practice today. So yeah, looks like he was practicing, which is good. He said on Sunday he'd be fine, and he called himself more day to day than week to week. So say what you will. Well, I mean, like from the
No, I literally thought he calls himself more Dontavian versus week to week. That's how my brain is
oh,
working right now.
so your brain's also fried.
Yeah,
Got it. Got it. Got it.
right,
Perfect.
right
Um,
on both sides.
so moving on Dontayvion Wicks into much more annoying and disappointing news. The Packers moved on from Brayden Narveson this week. They cut him in favor of signing uh, former Jacksonville Jaguars and briefly Washington Commander kicker Brandon McManus per Field Yates. Uh, he played with the Jaguars last year. I believe he also played for the Broncos previously, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Um, but over the offseason, he was civilly sued for a sexual assault that allegedly happened on a flight back from London last season. Um, the NFL since then has found insufficient evidence for sexual assault and cleared him of any further discipline from the league. Notably, he is not being charged criminally, only being sued civilly. Um, the event in question, this is from the Associated Press. Two flight attendants, this is all paraphrased. Two flight attendants were on the Jaguars plane as they flew overseas. Brandon McManus got drunk, even though they were not supposed to be drinking alcohol on the plane, but those rules were not enforced. Brandon McManus allegedly tried to kiss them, grinded on them, and rubbed up onto them, and tried to initiate the same actions with a separate flight attendant with other teammates. And then McManus attempted to persuade the flight attendants to join by passing out $100 bills. Um, as I said, the lawsuit was filed over the offseason in May, and he was subsequently released by the Commanders when that happened. Um, so, as part of the investigation into the civil suit, the NFL released up to 30 people and determined that there was, like I said, insufficient evidence. But I believe, yep, Tony Busby, who was representing the women filing the suit, alleged that the NFL had not talked to either of the alleged victims in the case. Excuse me. And it should be noted that Tony Busby is the attorney that represented many of the women in the suit that was filed against Deshaun Watson in 2021. So, brief pause as I take a sip of water. My apologies. Not a good look at all for the Packers. Um, I have some thoughts, and I guess let's just get right into it. I am first and foremost always going to believe the women in these cases. Like, it's just the most important thing. Like 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, these women are not making this up for any sort of reason whatsoever. And so to not believe them is just outright wrong, in my opinion. And to start, I'm disappointed with the Packers in general. Like, first off, with Brian Gutekunst, I don't want to call him like a liar per se, but he talked about having patience in with Anders Carlson, and maybe he should practice more with other players when they signed Brayden Narveson. 6 weeks isn't a lot of patience. Like, he's a rookie. You gave Anders Carlson the entire rookie season last year, and Anders Carlson was arguably better, but Brayden Narveson missing the most field goals out of the season this year obviously is bad. Football aside of it, it's just bad. But Brian Gutekunst talked about how he, I respect it isn't the word, took the NFL's investigation for what it was and believed that that was a justified finding. He said they talked to them as well, but man, Brandon McManus like isn't that good, and taking the football out of it or taking everything else out of it, if you're signing Brandon McManus to replace Brayden Narveson, this isn't much of an upgrade. And then on top of it, it sounds like he's a piece of shit. And I really don't like cheering for pieces of shit. This is a bad look by the Packers. And honestly, shame on you, Rich Bisaccia. He had a quote today with his media press conference that said what's not to like about him when referring to Brandon McManus. Just a totally 1000% tone deaf comment. And it's ugly, it's embarrassing, it's just flat out wrong. And kudos to like everybody on social media that was like, well, there's a pretty obvious thing, Rich.
How did you sign him?
Right.
How are you able to sign
How
him?
were you able to sign him? Because he wasn't available in the offseason until maybe a character flaw showed up.
And if the Commanders are saying that, then you must be really radioactive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I got thoughts too, and like I understand if people don't want this stuff to be talked about because it's sports. It's a, it's our um avenue to get away from real world circumstances and stuff like that. But I got some news for you. The real world exists in sports.
Yep.
These things happen. They have increasingly happened because people do bad things
Mm-hmm.
and it infects how their performance, it affects their job status, capabilities, whatever you want to call it. And these are things you just have to talk about. Like it's not a third rail thing because it is just what happens. The how the Packers were able to sign him is because Brandon McManus was released by the Washington Commanders, as I said before, an organization not known for its
Morality.
um morality. The reason why that team was sold recently is because they had one of the worst owners in all of football and
who had
yada yada yada
who had his own sexual assault and harassment scandal, which pushed him out of the
with
league
team
with team
employees.
employees.
So, yeah. So they release him after everything pops off in the summer. And I have to admit, I'm not playing this game to be like, I had the foresight, but I had a very sneaking suspicion to keep in tune to this case because I pay attention. My favorite football team has bad kicking choices. And so when someone who, even if Brandon McManus is not a Jason Elam or Adam Vinatieri, I thought, well, this might be something to keep an eye on based on what's going on and if he gets cleared. And as we see, 4 to 5 months later, he's a Green Bay Packer. I again, this is not me being like I
Right.
knew this was going to happen, but there was just some kind of weird intuition that I just paid attention to this case. And every turn about it is one awful, disgusting. His lawyers say that he was part of a shakedown. Who fucking shakes down a kicker?
What
Get
one who shakes down a kicker, two it's sorry, yeah, just who shakes down a kicker. I'll stop there.
Yeah, it's like whatever. But the thing that like I feel like is getting lost in this whole thing is that the incident in question, you can, if you're, I, I know, shout out to Keith fighting the good fight with some Twitter pieces of shit. Um, the common refrain is, well, no, why are we framing someone guilty before they're proven innocent or whatever the case may be?
Not
More
criminal
information
case.
is
Not a criminal
not a
case.
criminal
Doesn't
case.
fucking matter. Sorry for the
Exactly.
language. It's just it It the until proven guilty thing, it has like pervased the lexicon of people who understand what it's for.
Yep.
Innocent until proven guilty is a criminal term, and
Yep.
has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt to be like charged as guilty
Yep.
or to be found guilty.
Found guilty.
The civil case,
The
I'm sorry,
Derrick
to
Rose.
continue, the civil matter is by a preponderance of the evidence. So
Yes.
if all the evidence is there, it doesn't matter. You can be
Yeah.
found liable in the civil case. Sorry.
Similar to the Derrick Rose civil trial from like 2017
Or famously, the OJ trial.
or the RJ trial. Yes. Um, I think one of the biggest points that has been lost in this whole thing is that this happened on a team flight.
Yeah.
This happened on the way to London. This happened with other NFL players, NFL coaches. Doug Peterson, recently as last week, and I know he's probably saying this to solve his or save his own skin because he's going to get fired at some point this year, but literally said that the team needs a culture change. The team in question is the Jaguars, the
Which
team
seemed to.
that Brandon McManus was playing for
Mm-hmm.
last year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just think whenever someone says like, "Oh, what people do in their what happens off the field stays off the," or like this kind of like separating off the field incidents, concerns, whatever, with on the field, you could still is he still worthy of keeping a job? And it's like that is thrown out the window when this happened as an employee of the Jaguars. Like
Yep.
this happened as part of his duty to be a Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is a kicker.
And it's not like they disciplined him. He played the rest of the year last year. Like
Yeah, which
they the they flew back from London on the 30th of September against they had just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then he played the rest of the season. Like
yeah,
they were that was I can't look at all of them, but looks like to be I don't know 6-0 or no I'm sorry 6-2 or something like that whatever it was, but yeah
yeah.
he played the rest of the year.
Play the rest of the year, whatever. I think that is a very key detail in this whole thing
Also, my apologies
that
because I don't want to get it wrong. It was Saturday before they had went to the London to play against the Falcons. I had messed up the dates.
yes,
My apologies.
um that just seems to be lost to me. And it may not I'm just going to keep hammering home that like it's not things get blurred when you're this is the whole part of the kid caboodle. Like the NFL, again, it's not like this is a forward thinking organization. What they choose to discipline and what they don't choose to discipline is not is a black box. You don't know what is going how people are going to be disciplined or what is
Nope.
going to be disciplined.
Nope.
And when it's a full team case like this,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very thorny issue that they clearly, whether you want to say they swept under the rug or they dealt with in an appropriate manner,
Which they didn't.
which they did not. But I just think, again, desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess. And
Which
you have to
is
go after a kicker that has.
it's just the most despicable thing they've done in a while. Like
Well, and
I can't
that is
remember
the.
the last time they. I think they have in the past since I think we've done the podcast. They've signed some not so nice players that have incidents off the field. I can't remember who, but I feel like we've talked about this not in this sort of
There might be a draft pick that they covered or
maybe
something like that.
but I before that I can't remember them signing somebody like this.
Well, and that's the other thing that should be really hammered home here is that this comes after the whole Romeo Dobbs thing, where it's
Yeah,
the characteristics of Ian Packer and putting your best foot forward, having communication issues. Again, we don't know all the full details of what happened that obviously forced Romeo Dobbs to be suspended and how they dealt with that internally. But I find it very ironic that this team coming out of that
Incredibly
goes
ironic.
into the and I'm sure Brian Gutekunst obviously was very prepared for the line of questioning that he faced Wednesday after all this was made official and Brandon McManus is in the building. Rich Bisaccia's comments aside, I mean, again, just how pig-headed could that be?
Yeah.
Um,
I it's it's
just a
it's embarrassing.
just a fucking dunce
Yeah.
of a way to look at it.
Yep.
I understand, like in the grand scheme of things, this is a kicker that they're gonna keep doing this over and over again because they're not gonna figure this out.
Nope.
I'm just saying that right now, that this is going to be
It's not gonna
they'll
work out.
turn to, yeah, it's not gonna work out, whatever the case may be. But it just the judgment here, it's this the eternal um it's not a battle because it's not whatever you want to look at it, but like these decisions that get made with the question in mind of, well, how much blowback is worth getting someone? And for a kicker, I would say
None.
none,
None at
none.
all.
There are just some things again that are just zero tolerance,
Yeah.
zero tolerance. That's all we're looking for,
Sexual assault's one of them.
especially one of many
One
of
of
them.
many, obviously. But yeah.
Um, but when the guy can't even be an up, like just not be a dirtbag while he's on a team flight and he gets drunk and he does just boorish things.
Yeah.
It's whatever. So let's to put a bow on
I
this.
have one
Brandon
more thing I want to
McManus,
talk about, but like to mention before we put a bow on it. But
um, he said that it's been a difficult time these last couple of months. I'm happy that it's in the past now. I was hoping and working hard for another opportunity. I'm extremely grateful for the Green Bay Packers for giving me that next chance to come back out here and play the game I love. And it seems like the lawsuit has been resolved between both parties.
so
Um, and that the terms are made confidential.
yeah, so Goody said
So a
that it's
settlement.
confidential. Yeah, it's a settlement. Yeah. So they didn't want to go to trial, obviously. And it's a settlement. Like if he really wanted to fight it, he could have went to trial. And
Yeah.
if he was that adamant to have his name cleared.
Yeah.
That's just it's it's shitty. And like I gave my shame
Shakedown.
I gave my shame yeah, shakedown. I gave my shame earlier. The biggest again, F you and shame on the NFL. Do you know what kind of investigation it is to interview 30 people, but not the victims involved if you are a third party
Ah,
like the NFL is? It's a sham, is what it is. It's a bullshit investigation not meant to actually find out what happened. Because, again,
yeah.
like you had mentioned, they were on a team plane. Who are about 30 individuals that are going to be on a team plane? Probably his teammates, his coaches, staff
Yeah.
members, all people associated and employed by the fucking NFL. But no, maybe they interviewed the captain. Maybe they interviewed a different, uh,
Other flight
another
attendants.
flight attendant. But to not talk to the two people alleging the 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 assault is insane, absolutely insane. And
Yeah.
it,
Well, and then, again, putting not to one up you with putting a bow on this, but I mean, this has been going on for what, nearly 20 years, since Roger Goodell has been in power, where he extends the arm of being the commissioner, of being this disciplinary
judge, jury, and
committee. But
executioner.
yeah, the law and order.
Mm-hmm.
And time and time again, they fail themselves in how to dole out these punishments. Like, you can't, you're a sports and entertainment business trying to be the legal system of your own
Mm-hmm.
employees.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to something like this, again, it happened on a team flight. So there's incentive for the NFL to not make this go public, to
Yep.
kind of sweep it along the rug.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be conspiratorial or anything like that, but the fact that there was insufficient evidence found, and as you mentioned, the shortcomings of the league's investigation, whether you want to believe the defendant's attorney Tony Busby, who again has had the NFL in his crosshairs for quite a while now,
Yep.
um, and is someone worth believing, by the way. It just shows just how pointless this whole extension of the NFL is. And you know, our conversation is not going to solve it. These things are going to
No.
continue to happen, and we're going to, this will not be the first and last time that we have to talk about someone that we do not want to root for being on the
No.
team that we root for the most.
It
But
makes it
these things happen.
football things like just looking at it from a football perspective, it makes kicking just even more miserable than it already was. Because
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, he's not any better than Anders Carlson was, like at all. And sure, he might be better than Brayden Narveson. That's fine. If he is, so be it. But if he continues to perform like Anders did, this is going to be as frustrating as it was throughout the entire last season and out up to this season, with the added fact that he's also just a piece of shit. So, and I'm just annoyed. I'm disappointed. I'm annoyed. Yeah, that's that. Does that put the bow on it, Jordan? Should we move on?
Yeah.
So,
I don't mean to laugh, but
before
yeah,
before we
that
move on,
was
if you didn't care to hear this conversation, I don't really care. Like, we needed to talk about it. You can't just not talk about something like this because that's how it gets
yeah.
swept under the rug. Not like you said, not that our conversation is going to be something to change about, but at least it's a continuation of the narrative that this is not a good signing for the Packers. It's an embarrassing signing. So again, sorry, not sorry is literally what this amounts to for talking about it for 23 minutes. So yeah, getting into the actual football as we do now. Like I said, Packers going up against the Houston Texans this week. The 5-1 Houston Texans having had their only loss uh, to the Minnesota Vikings. I think in week 2 or 3, they got trounced by the Vikings.
Yes,
A
they did.
little bit of a serious history. The Packers are 4-1 when facing the Houston Texans, 3-0 against the Texans on the road, 1-1 at home. The Texans' only win over the Packers came when they beat the Packers 24-21 in Week 14 of the 2008 NFL season, aka Rodgers' rookie year. The last meeting was in Week 7 of the 2020 season. The Packers beat them 35-20. That was the game where it was snowing in the middle of October, and we got a lot of really cool pictures from that
Do
matchup.
you want to hear the Packer players that scored touchdowns in this game?
Can I guess?
Yes, I got one, two, three, four.
Okay. Geronimo Allison is one.
Nope.
Damn.
I don't believe he was on the team at this
Okay.
point.
Devontae.
Devontae scored twice.
Yep. Uh, Jamal Williams.
Correct. So
Let's
you're halfway there.
let's go. Uh, a tight end that I surely am not going to remember. Dick Rod wasn't on the team. Was Dick Rod on the team?
No,
Is it Dick? So it's not Richard Rodgers.
no,
Oh my god, I could. Oh,
you-
Mercedes Lewis.
no.
Fuck.
Think tight end. That was a high draft pick that did not pan out.
Oh, wait. Oh, Jay Sternberger.
Yeah, baby.
Oh,
Jay
who's
Sternberger.
what position
I
is
would
the
love
who's the?
for you.
Oh, okay, sorry, keep going.
I would love for you to get that was his only touchdown as a Packer, by the way.
That's funny.
Um,
The fourth
I
one.
would love for you to get the other wide receiver that scored a touchdown in this game.
EQ. Economist St. Brown. Samari Toure. No, he's 21. Um, if you're Amari Rogers.
Nope.
Damn. Um.
Malik Taylor.
Oh God, I never would have got there.
Yeah. I thought maybe you'd probably like guess Derek Shepard. Remember Derek
I
Shepard?
don't
Or
remember
I
Derek
think that was his
Shepard.
name. I remember Derek
Devontae
Shepard at
scored
least.
twice. Oh, and then three other guys. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I
Um,
was very tickled by the people that
oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
scored.
Like I said, the Texans are 5-1. They have a plus 8 point differential and lead the NFC or the AFC South. Their wins have come against the Colts, the Bears, the Jaguars, the Bills, and the Patriots. And their, as I mentioned, their one loss was a 34-7 against the Vikings. Um, I think notably, I think it's worth like calling out that their wins have not really come against strong teams. They
Plus 8 point differential too, which I was found very shocking for a team that is 5-1. And
their offense has been really bad, like weirdly bad. And so, um, the only team of like quality that they've beaten so far is the Bills, and I think that game was at home for them, and that game was close, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah.
um, so yeah, Jordan, you have something you want to share with the people?
Yeah, let's do it. So obviously the Texans are, I believe, 22 years old.
Yeah,
So when I saw that the Packers have only played them, this will be the sixth time that they have played them. I looked up, well, who are the other teams that have played against the Packers 5 times? Are you ready for some obscure NFL teams from
I'm ready.
yesteryear?
Oh, I'm ready.
Let's go, Rock Island Independence. How about the Providence Steamroller, not plural, singular? The New York Yanks? The Duluth Eskimos?
Also,
Am I?
goated name. I need Duluth Eskimos merch ASAP.
Yeah. Here's my personal favorite: the Dayton Triangles.
Yeah, it's like Bermuda's cousin.
Apparently, I had to see this. Oh yeah, look at that. I wish I could share my
what am I looking
screen.
up?
Dayton Triangles logo.
Dude, what is
They were.
that? For the people at home, it is the worst Heisman pose you've ever seen. It looks
Yeah.
like the football player is wearing or is like dabbing with his left arm way out behind him in a straight line, holding the ball with his right hand, wearing a leather helmet, and he's in a running animation inside of a right side up thick black triangle, but on his jersey the triangle's upside down.
It is. Yeah, that is weird. I had to find this, and this paid off.
I
But
want to
yeah,
see if there's a
I
hold on. I gotta see if there's a Duluth Eskimos logo.
it's gotta be.
Oh my god, there is. It's a. I'm not sure if this is real, so take it with a big grain of salt. This team folded in
Is that an
1920
igloo?
in 1927. No, it's the next one. It's a. It's an Eskimo in its traditional wear with a harpoon, holding a football, dashing away from an igloo.
I am reading that they are the first team to use a logo in NFL history.
The Wikipedia page just has the igloo and what looks like to be that weird font you use in MS Paint, like
Yes.
in elementary school, where it's like a sponge and then you like click the sponge. That's how they looks like they made their logo.
Yeah.
But yeah, the wiki one is just Duluth Eskimos with the igloo. So, John Blood McNally was their halfback. He's all
And oh,
he's in the Hall of Fame.
yeah. And well, that's also a Packer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure that's a Packer.
Um, the 2008 film Leatherheads is partially based on the story of the Duluth Eskimos, which, having seen that movie back in 2008, probably didn't do the Duluth Eskimos justice,
Probably
George
not.
Clooney.
Probably not.
My beef against George Clooney lives another day because that movie sucks.
Check out Make Time for or I'm sorry, not Make Time for This. The premium pod on GSPN Substack for that context.
Yeah.
Jordan has beef with movie stars, particularly George Clooney.
Ugh.
So, all right, let's get into the matchup injury report for this week. Long for both teams. For the Packers, limited in practice this week was Jair. This is limited on for both. I guess we'll just do all limited. My apologies. Limited for the Packers. Jair with a groin, Kenny Clark with a toe, Elton Jenkins with a knee injury, Tucker Kraft with a groin injury, Josh Myers with a neck injury, Jaden Reed with an ankle injury, Christian Watson with an ankle injury, Dontayvion Wicks with his shoulder injury, as we've talked about earlier, and then Colby Wooden with a knee injury. Jonathan Ford is returning from his IR stint with his calf injury. He was a full participant in practice both days, Wednesday and Thursday. And the only DMP this week was Devontae Wyatt with his ankle injury he is still recovering from. So looks like everyone's all good coming back. I would expect everyone to play this week unless something else crops up during the week. Um, Good to see that Josh Myers is back practicing after he returned from his injury back against the Cardinals this past week, and that I think Christian Watson's ankle injury is still obviously the one that he was nursing that allowed him to play last week. So, um, for the Houston Texans, they had a few pretty important DNPs, including their linebackers Aziz Al Shair with a knee injury, and then their other linebacker, Delshawn Phillips, has a hip injury. He was a limited participant in practice today. And their other linebacker that DNP'd was Henry. I can't pronounce his name. Tu Owatuo, linebacker. He had a concussion. He was a DNP, and then they have a lot of names. I'm just gonna butcher. My apologies. Falan Folorenzo Fatuk. I'm just not. I just can't do it.
Fatukazi?
Fatukazi. Thank you. I was trying to sound it up. My brain just was not working. He has a shoulder injury. He has a DMP. Uh, Kamari Lassiter, cornerback. He has a shoulder injury. He was a DMP. As was Jimmy Ward, their safety, with a groin, and Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, as they call him, with a foot injury. He was a DMP. You never heard him called Bobby
Bobby
Trees?
Bobby Trees. I have
Bobby
only heard him called that by you. That is why
no, no, no,
yes.
no, 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 no.
Also, it would be really funny if you said those like Aziz Al Shier or Follow Runzo Fatakazi. Very like perfect. And then you'd be like, go Mixon.
Yeah. I'll have you know, Jordan, that on Pro Football Reference, how they do their names, next to Robert Thomas Woods' name, in parentheses, is Bobby Trees.
Bobby
So,
Tommy Tree.
Bobby Trees. Bobby
Bobby
Trees.
Trees.
But yeah, then Joe Mixon was limited in practice with his ankle injury that he's recovering from. That I think he played last week, so that's all good that
Yes,
way.
he did.
And then Laramie Tunzel, their star tackle, who hasn't been that good this season, he has an ankle
No,
injury.
he's
He
not.
was limited on Wednesday and a full participant on Thursday. So let's get right into it. I think the biggest story to come out of Houston right now, like I said earlier, is that the offense hasn't been that good this year. Um, Peter Bukowski shared a stat this afternoon. The Texans, or I'm sorry, the CJ Stroud and the Texans offense. So this is from last year and this year. So my apologies. I thought this was just this year. So I can't read. Not Peter's fault that I can't read. The Texans are 17th in EPA per play, 26th in success rate, and 13th in EPA per dropback. So their offense hasn't been like super high powered and super duper efficient. And so I think CJ Stroud is absolutely one of the rising stars at quarterback in the NFL. He's very exciting. He's got an absolute cannon for an arm. But even like this season thus far, the offense hasn't been good, and it's not going to get much better with the fact that Nico Collins has a hamstring injury and is on IR at the moment. Um, Last week without Nico Collins, CJ Stroud threw 20 of 31 for 192 yards and three touchdowns in the 41-21 absolute just smashing of the New England Patriots. Um, but even without Nico Collins, the Texans still have a lot of weapons. They still have Stephon Diggs. They still have Tank Dell. They still have Joe Mixon. They still have Dalton Schultz, who are all capable of making big plays. I think very similarly, the the Houston Texans really remind me of like the Packers. I think like that was one of the most fascinating matchups on the schedule this season was this one because their team build is just so similar. Like
Yeah.
they're both really good or supposed to be really good on defense. They both have a lot of weapons around their offense to spread the ball around. They don't really need to focus on one person in particular in the game, like on the offense, a la like Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Also, LOL at that. Um, but it's just so intriguing because like they can spread the ball around with the best of them. the Texans can. And if everyone's on, just like the Packers, if everyone's on, it's really hard to stop the offense. But um, I think CJ Stroud has been doing a lot of heavy lifting for this offense this season. He's been pretty darn good at like making sure they stay afloat, but their run game has not been good in the absence of Joe Mixon. They had their former breakout running back Damian Pierce is still there, and he's been pretty bad the last couple of years. But I mean, they just
They just
traded
traded Cam
Cam Akers
Akers to
back to the
yeah,
Vikings.
yeah.
And
Weird.
so
Yeah, that's weird how that's worked.
right, but they traded him back to the Vikings after he signed with the Texans in the offseason, and the Vikings just acquired him after letting him walk, or if he just didn't want to sign there regardless. But um, yeah, the running backs just haven't been good. There was Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, and Cam Akers, and it was just a whole big bunch of meh. And so uh, this offense is going to be really interesting. At least not to have Nico Collins in there because Nico Collins is a pretty talented wide receiver. I think quietly one of the best receivers in the NFL right now. Like
Uh,
I know he's
the
what? Yeah,
I
the
mean,
best. He had 500 yards through 5 games. That's incredible. But
and is
like
still the lead wide receiver, even
if they're
missing
missing a
one
game,
and a half games.
yeah, I think. But like if you were to tell me after last season, because like Tank Dell had a really good season last year, it was kind of like the talk of the rookie receivers outside of a couple of the big ones. I wouldn't have put Nico Collins up there, like frankly, and that's my bad and just
Well,
not paying attention to him. But he's been damn good the last season and a half.
yeah. I mean, to your point too, there's a reason why they went out and traded for Stephon Diggs too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had a good up and coming wide receiver supporting cast, and but they missed. They were still lacking a whether you want to call Diggs a number one or just kind of a singular presence. Um, as a cop car passes my house. Um, I think they still needed to kind of bring in someone that commands a lot of attention from the secondary. And I think part of that's why Nico Collins was thriving before his injury. I think with Tank Dell getting back to full health in different ways because he tore his ACL last year and then got shot over the offseason, which was just crazy.
Crazy.
Um, that's where I think your point of a lot has been put on CJ Stroud's shoulders, and now with injuries to currently to Nico Collins and Joe Mixon battling some form of injury at this point, it can look a little harder. Like I think your point of these teams mirror each other in a lot of ways. I think that's even down to how this year has been for both. Is that the Texans are 5-1, but +8 point differential kind of points to they're getting out of these games, but it's not convincingly. It's kind of escaping, especially like that Bears game where they were beating up on Caleb Williams, but they were
Mm-hmm.
giving every ample opportunity for them to win that game
Mm-hmm.
for the Bears. I mean, um, and Jordan Love, before last week, obviously his injury too, um, but was riding the wave of like that's Jordan Love. Oh, that's also Jordan Love. Yeah, like you just kind of you take the good with the bad and see how it all comes out in the end. But yeah, these teams are both being hyped up about what the next year looks like. This year looks like for them. Obviously, it hasn't been easy, but some of the even some of the moves that they have made, like going after veteran running backs, whether it's Joe Mixon or Josh Jacobs, or you know, I think the Texans they made a lot of conscious decisions to move on from guys that they felt like capitalized on career years, like a Blake Cashman,
Who's is that?
um,
Who is the fella that they let sign with Minnesota? It was Cashman
Blake
and some, it
Cashman.
was somebody else too, wasn't though? It was they. There's two.
They swapped their pass edge
Yeah, I
rushers
can't think of his name.
Greenard or
Yeah, Bernard.
Greenyard,
Yeah, yep.
and they bring
Bernard.
in
Yeah,
Daniel Hunter.
yep.
There's just been a lot of like interesting personnel moves that obviously mirror. It's not like for like, but they mirror how the Packers have approached this offseason or
Right.
approached the offseason and then going into this year. So, yeah, I think they meet each other at very interesting points of the season, and it's still even without Nico Collins. I mean, you're kind of fortunate in a way that he's missing the game. Not that
Yeah, you don't
you
want
want
to
to hope for
you
that,
don't want to hope for that, but it definitely takes a big burden off the secondary.
and especially a secondary that's been banged up for the last couple of weeks. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah, we're gonna get the Stephon Diggs Jair matchup again. That'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. Um, I hope that's the case because Eric Stokes has been pretty bad. I'd like to issue an apology to Keyshawn Nixon. He's been pretty good from the stats, so I'll shift my anger focus to the organization first and foremost, and then Eric Stokes. um, but yeah, I think like the the biggest thing is just trying to find a way to get home against CJ Stroud, but also making sure you contain him. Like CJ Stroud's a mobile quarterback. He's not mobile in the way that you would think about like um, Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts or Anthony Richardson or anyone like that, but he's absolutely athletic. Like that, there's no doubt about that. And so making sure that you treat him the same way you treat these other quarterbacks, but maybe dial a blitz or two to make sure you can really put pressure on this offensive line that has been kind of I'd say. Like, is that you think
Your point
that's
about Larry Tunsil is the most penalized offensive lineman per PFF,
mm-hmm.
and their guard Kenyon Green is not far behind. So, yeah, this is not a disciplined team in terms of like
No.
they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, which
Yeah.
sounds very familiar.
The CJ Stroud has 17 carries for 75 yards. A couple of those are kneel downs. His biggest game was against Buffalo, where he had 3 carries for 27 yards. But um, he's been sacked 16 times this season. That's a lot.
No.
That's a lot. He had going in order from week one to last week 4-3-4-2-1-2. Like, and the 2-1-2 was against the Jaguars, the Bills, and the Patriots. It started with 4-3-4 against the Colts, who don't have a great pass rush, and then the Bears, who have a really good pass rush, and the Vikings, who have a really good pass rush. And so, if they can get home, there's opportunity to for this pass rush to get home and make life hell for CJ Stroud in the pocket, which is probably gonna be pretty important to slow down this offense. And so, it's gonna be a pretty decent balancing act of okay, do you try and get home and sack him, or do you try and just keep him in the pocket to make sure he doesn't burn you with his legs? I think I'm trying to go for the former, but that's with extreme hesitancy that they're actually able to do it because, as we talked about, they've been having issues getting home when they do decide to rush. And so,
Yeah.
if they can, so be it. If they can't, I'm gonna grimace a little bit if they start getting burned on the ground.
It's not great. I mean, this is where I feel like our belief in the individual playmakers or some of them, like Xavier McKinney or Evan Williams, has certainly shot up the rankings.
Yeah,
Edgerrin Cooper, like there's belief in the individual parts, but the pass rush is it's glaring. And last week we were very, I would say, not optimistic, but I felt like we were both like, yeah, they didn't record a sack, but when it's Kyler Murray and he wasn't running rampant on them, he
no,
wasn't doing
which is fine.
kind of like the magician type plays. It was the best of the kind of contain a a quarterback that can do both of make plays over in the air and on the ground.
Hmm.
Maybe not that I'm resorting to this, but like the Packers just have found this way of the pass rush is lacking, but what they're covering up in the back end and what they're seeing with like Edgerrin Cooper, like in the second line of defense, it's making up for that fact that quarterbacks can kind of buy a lot of time back there.
Hmm.
It's not great, but I feel like we keep resorting to like this is the week, this is the week, especially like Rashawn Gary. I think last week
Yeah.
I saw PFF was gave him three pressures. That's tied for the most he's had in games, but it's literally been like 3-0-0-3-0-3.
Yeah.
So it's like even his better days, it's not, it's all or nothing all
Mm-hmm.
season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when, you're gonna dial it up and the water's gonna be running and Texas is gonna be flying everywhere. But I think this committee, it's been a committee, it's been by a committee approach by default because the guy that you paid the big bucks to be this disruptor and undisputed sacks leader, you know Devontae Wyatt, who hasn't played the last couple of games, is eclipsing him. Carl Brooks is getting in the mix with more playing time.
Yep.
Kenny Clark has been slow to start the season, but I have more faith in him ramping up and being disruptive as the year goes along versus what we're currently seeing with Rashawn Gary.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where the pass rush, my thoughts on the pass rush kind of stand at this point.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah, it's been
1 week since I've had good thoughts about good thoughts about the Packers pass rush. um. So yeah, let's move on a little bit to Joe Mixon. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Comes over from the Bengals in the offseason via a trade, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I'm sorry, free agency. That yeah, my apologies. Um, he's missed 2 games with that injury, as we mentioned up top. Thus far in 2024, he has 52 carries for 286 rushing yards, 5.5 yards per carry, eighth in the NFL, and 2 touchdowns. 32.7% of his runs have come against defenses that have stacked boxes, aka 8 defenders or more. And the Packers have played with a hell of a lot of stacked boxes this far this season. 19.7%, so 20%. So almost a fifth of their defense comes with 8 people in the box. So Texans clearly feel good about Mixon and David Pierce going forward because obviously they traded Cam Akers. But another interesting running back for the Packers to go up against. Another dynamic back like Saquon Barkley, how they started the year against Philadelphia. Guy that can run the ball effectively, but also very good at catching the ball out of the backfield and is a really big dual threat running back. I'm trying to find his receiving stats quickly for his last year um, in Cincinnati because obviously he missed a couple of games thus far this season. But what do you have thoughts on Joe Mixon, Jordan, while I find these stats?
I certainly worry about what he can do to this run defense. I think encouraging returns week after week, but there's still this nagging feeling that this Packers defense can be run on by a quality running back. Last week, as you mentioned, James Conner got hurt. So the
Yep.
Cardinals were down their top running back, and the guy that I was clued in on of, well, you're paying attention to all these, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride type players. James Conner can easily just wreak havoc, and obviously his day was abbreviated.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's the profile of a running back that can do damage on the ground and um in the air, or whether they incorporate him more in screens or whatever. Like that threat certainly puts a lot of pressure on the linebacker core, maybe more of Evan Williams and Javon Bullard. That helps kind of ease that burden. Um, I know that's where it's going to come down to one, how he's used. Obviously, health is very important, especially when he's missed a couple games this year already. Um, Bigger thing is, especially, the winter warning's coming this week. The winter warning,
We're not getting into the jerseys.
I know, but the winter warning is coming. Um, but in seriousness, like I think a lot of it is just who's gonna be on the field. Like if Evan Williams is playing 38 snaps, that's good. It's not great because that guy should be on the field at all time.
You're saying he should
But
be playing more snaps.
Yes. Um, and the less burden that it is for like their, linebacker core, um, having to spy on or, cover Mixon
Yep.
in the backfield or on passing plays and stuff like that. I don't know. I think things have gotten easier with the rotation of the defense, especially when players have emerged like an Evan Williams or Javon Bullard, just kind of, after some early ups and downs. I feel like we're getting more ups than downs. It's
Yep.
kind of stabilized.
Yep.
I think those two guys in particular just help out the, back half, obviously, of the defense, that they're not getting burned by big plays. And maybe, you know, the Eagles have a lot of other things going on with that team. But if we look at that, how the Packers defense looked in that game in Brazil, all the other factors going on, to now where the defense is looking more sharper, they're obvious the turnover battle, or, ability to produce turnovers regularly, is holding for right now. I think how far the defense has come as a whole, even if some parts are, lacking. I wonder how a guy like Saquon Barkley would look against this version of the Packers defense. That's my long-winded way of saying this Packers defense may be more equipped to neutralize someone like Joe Mixon, who's not Saquon Barkley or not one of the best running backs that the Packers will see this year, but certainly has the ability to inflict damage on them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great, great, great points all around.
Thank
Um,
you.
um, Next up, Packers defending the pass rush against Houston is going to be a tough ask. Um, as the Texans took C.J. Stroud, I believe it was second overall, right? Last year, yeah, yeah, and then
No, first, because then
nope, nope,
Will Anderson was
nope,
second.
nope.
You
Bryce
sure?
Bryce Young was first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, famously first.
Sorry.
But then they took C.J. Stroud and traded up again to get um, Will Anderson Jr., and it has definitely worked out. Um, he has 5.5 sacks through his 6 games this season, good for fifth in the NFL. And Danielle Hunter's 18.4% pressure rate ranks second in the NFL behind Myles Garrett, and he has 3.5 sacks himself. The unit in general has 19 sacks through their 6 games, and their 8.5 sack percentage, 8.8% sack percentage is fourth in the NFL, and their pressure rate, 43.1%, is top of the league. So they have a
Really?
really talented front. Um, all eyes are going to be on Rasheed Walker this weekend because he's going to most likely see Will Anderson Jr. And so how he is able um, to fare against one of the top edge rushers in the league is going to be critical in how well the offense goes this week. Rasheed Walker this season, 408 snaps, 1 sack allowed, 14 pressures allowed, and 6 penalties is the big one. Um, I think most of those are holdings as well. So
Yeah.
um, Houston's blitz percentage is 30.6, good for eighth in the NFL. And when pressured this season, Jordan Love is 18 of 44 for 332 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So I'd be curious to know what the other two are. I know the one is the loft against the Vikings that didn't go well. I'd be curious to know what the other two were, if they were the ones that weren't his fault, kind of thing. So yeah, this is a really critical part of this matchup this weekend because we haven't really seen outside of the Vikings game a consistent 60-minute pressure against Jordan Love and how he can handle it. Like there's been like this is obviously they're going to be their toughest match up against the blitz they'll have thus far this season. And so I think getting the run game going is a great way to get past that. The way the Texans are dinged up too, missing two of their most important linebackers who are DMPs Wednesday and Thursday. Like if both of those guys are out, that's going to be great for the running game. But then if you can get the run game going early on in the game, that opens up play action and really frees up their opportunity to start moving the ball better. And I think that's going to be important because if they're just going to tee off on Rasheed Walker and just send blitz the entire game, like I wouldn't doubt you'll see Tucker Craft on the left side of the offense a whole lot this game. Either him or Ben Sims just trying to get an extra blocker to help Rasheed Walker against Will Anderson, which is probably best.
Vika Ryan's second year coach, I mean, he made his bread and butter as the 49ers defensive coordinator. As we know, he has certainly installed game plans that harassed and battered and bruised the Packers. Definitely in 2022, I don't think he was the D coordinator in the that first championship game
I forget.
um,
I don't remember
against the 49ers. I don't want to remember either.
that too.
But yeah, like this is one of the best defensive minds in football already.
Yeah,
And
he was their D coordinator in 21 and 22.
oh, so he okay, so it wasn't the oh yeah, because it was Robert Saleh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
infamously. Matt LaFleur's best man. Um,
He has been a coach with them, but he was a coach with the 49ers from 17 to 22.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, one of the best defensive minds. All as I mentioned before, like the moves that they made to overhaul the defense and kind of, I think they were very vigilant on not relying on last year's success, and they have built something even more disruptive and destructive. Um, you can only look at what they did to Caleb Williams on Sunday night on week 2, and just see how they got after him. And I think for me, it's obviously a big test for the O line, specifically Rasheed Walker. I think you're going to be spot on that how much a Tucker Craft or a Ben Sims gets used in terms of like just getting an extra blocker. That's obviously going to affect how the passing game looks and options downfield. But really, Jordan Love, I'm already neutralizing the point that I was about to make. But like, quarterbacks get pressured every week. How quarterbacks respond to said pressure is what makes or breaks someone's season. Obviously, the concern of what his knee looks like, or playing on him, he's made enough plays that gives us the impression that it's not as bad as what we feared. And it's, he's running on it, he's making it's not just, throwing the ball. But I do worry what happens if this O line can't contain it. What if we see extended drives that Jordan Love is under pressure and he has to make decisions not to the best of his ability or to his best to read what's going on in the field because things are obscured. He doesn't have enough time to get the ball off. This could be where the worst case scenario is that it's not just his health, but Jordan Love having being rushed into decisions could easily lead into, you know, 3 picks.
Interceptions. Yeah.
And I think that is if there's going to be a book on and I'm going to push back on the point that you said about like the only game that we really saw extensively that he was getting pressure was the Minnesota game, which is correct. But I do want to point out the Cardinals, for as feeble as their defense is, they were basically just saying, screw it. We're gonna go after Jordan Love in the second half of last week.
Yeah.
And Packers defense did more than enough to, you know, shut them off, but it did quiet the offense considerably. At least compared to what we saw in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if this is more well-rounded, this is not just it's happening all quarters of the game, not just one half. What does that do for this offense? That again, this is a very explosive Packers offense, and this is a very good Texans defense that has the ability to just get after Jordan Love and just kind of take away the head of the snake.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not eager to see what Jordan Love will look like if he's kind of batting down the hatches and having to live by a prayer.
Yeah, but I think the beauty of that too is that if they get going, this offense can work quickly and get quick
Yeah,
passes out. And so if they can work like that, that just nullifies the pass rush entirely. And so I think that's one way to beat it is this team, the Packers team, has weapons to work quick, whether that's slants over the middle or um, just different types of like jet sweeps and things like that with Jaden Reed or Bo Melton. Like this Packers team is capable of handling a team that blitzes a lot through various Matt LaFleur designed plays. So
yeah.
there are ways to nullify that. Last point to make, short one. Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback for the Texans, pretty darn good one for them. Their number one corner for sure. Who he matches up against this week is going to be fun to watch, whether it's Christian Watson or Jaden Reed or Romeo Dobbs. Um, this so far this season, he's been targeted 30 times, the most on the Texans. 17 receptions, 172 yards, 77 yards after the catch, um, and has not allowed a touchdown. He has one interception to go with that. Like I said, I'm sorry, has allowed one touchdown. My apologies. Quarterback's passer rating I'm sorry, NFL rating when throwing at him is 70.4. So they have I'm not going to say not talented secondary, but they after Derek Stingley Jr. it kind of drops off a little bit. Um, Kamari Lassiter is their other um, cornerback.
Rookie
Yep,
too.
yep. He's only played 5 games this season, like
Uh,
it says on the injury report. Go ahead.
best cornerback that they've already or they're gonna face this year so far, right? I can't of
Uh,
the other teams. I guess they faced off against Snead,
yeah.
but you know,
Off the top of my head, I think that might be right, but I think that there's closer ones. But regardless, um, their other quarterback is Jalen. I'm gonna say Petre, uh, third year guy. He's been, I'll say, in
meh.
coverage. He has 26 targets, 18 catches on him, 3 penalties applied to him, 150 yards allowed, has allowed 2 touchdowns, and just in general passer rating for QBs when throwing at him is 109.5. So I think that's where between Stingley, Petre, I'll say, and Kamari Lassiter, whoever's on Petre, I feel bad because I know that's probably not right. Um,
Petri dish.
yeah, exactly. Is probably gonna see a good share of the targets. Like I think it'll be a guided target for sure. But spreading the ball around, making sure these guys are on their toes is gonna be important too. So, all right, Jordan, should we get into players to watch and fantasy guys?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Players to watch. Players to watch. Ooh, who do I want my Packer to be? Actually, I'll continue what I was saying most recently. Jordan Love. Best game of the year so far was last week. As comfortable, as precise, as flamboyant as we've seen him in a game so far. At least his flamboyance resulted in good things. But yeah, I think this is a really good Texas defense. We saw glimpses of what he came up against the Vikings and how that turned out. That was a nightmare first half that they had to dig themselves out of a nasty hole that they couldn't. I don't think the same circumstances arise. I certainly hope so, or hope not for just the sake of watching this game.
Right.
But again, this is a test. These are the things that he has to ace as we continue back up the mountain and having to make the climb towards the Super Bowl. So, yeah, let's hope Jordan Love, one, stays upright, two, makes good decisions in the pocket or gets the ball out as quickly as possible, and three, he's got to make a little bit of magic. Hopefully, that magic doesn't, go against him, and
It's not dark
it,
magic.
it's not dark magic exactly. So, yeah, that Jordan Love is my big Packer to watch.
I've got a couple I'm in between. Rasheed Walker is one. Josh Jacobs is another. Um, Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark are two others, but I'm gonna go with Jair Alexander solely because my Texan to watch is Stephon Diggs. I'm really
Mm,
excited for this matchup and how this plays out. Um, Two guys that are all ego, better for worse, like two guys very confident in themselves at all times. I think this is gonna be a fun matchup regardless. And Stephon Diggs being wide receiver one now with Nico Collins out, gonna see some more targets. Probably worth counting on that. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, just seeing how Jair responds, and maybe we can have a fun matchup with those two guys going at it all day long.
I'm gonna go Joe Mixon for my Texan watch. I think he's gonna be the biggest bellwether for how comfortable this offense looks against Green Bay. I think it's obviously the biggest bellwether if they win, because if he's putting over 100 yards on the ground, he's getting in the passing game, and just gives you know CJ Stroud a safety valve to turn to,
Mm-hmm.
that the offense keeps humming when he's handing the ball off to him. That obviously mitigates not having your the lead receiver in the NFL. So yeah, I think again, encouraging returns from the Packers run defense, but one week can easily just turn or confirm why it's such a big worry because of what we've seen for years and years and years.
Right. Totally get that and totally agree. All right. Score predictions. I'm gonna go 27-24 Packers. I think this is gonna be a close game. And my another prediction to go with this is that Xavier McKinney has another interception.
Mm.
I think he's gonna have ample opportunity to do so this week.
Before I give my prediction, I'm looking at the weather because we are approaching that part of the year where weather makes a
I
turn.
think
Green
supposed to be nice.
Bay weather for, according to the Weather Channel, which I've heard is a good authority on weather, um, 77 and sunny.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That is a perfect forecast for the Packers to win 31, Texans 21.
Nice. Love that. Love that. So that does it, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out gspn.substack.com to see the report on the chooses every week and to get all the GSPN pods ad free and GSPN After Darks. Those are always a lot of fun. Check out Eurostep and Win in Six as the Bucks season kicks off next week, as well as Cruising for a Bruising if you want to live back other Brewers' happy times earlier in the season.
Oh,
And then make time for this as well. Uh, Thank you again all for listening. Some programming notes. I'll be gone the next three pods, so you have Jordan and some guests from the GSPN crew. So um, you'll hear all of my thoughts on Twitter or various forms of communication that aren't my not so smooth and leathery voice. So thank you again for listening. I appreciate you all, and Jordan, thank you.
thank you.